Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. We are back live again. We have another fantastic guest. We have Grace Perechinsky on. I said it right because it's not the name you go by, right, Grace?
No, it's Chinny or Coach Chinny.
We have Coach Chinny. We know Grace long before she was a coach, and we're excited to have you on tonight and talk about your story and some perspective about life and sports, and obviously, especially softball. So, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me. I told you I'm a big fan of the podcast and I love what you're doing here, both of you. So just keep it rolling.
No,
Thank
awesome.
you.
So let's go ahead and introduce yourself by going back to, I mean, you don't have to go back to like kindergarten or anything, but when you first started either playing sports or softball, or did you do something else and then softball was introduced later? You tell us, and we'll get rolling with questions and telling your story.
Yeah, I'd say I was always kind of just an athletic kid. I'm pretty competitive, so I was always involved in like some type of sport or something. Um, I started actually, believe it or not, most people don't know, I was a cheerleader till I was like 10.
No way.
Yeah, I was.
Oh,
My mom has pictures to prove that, but I did do cheer.
So that's gonna be the podcast cover picture.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can
we
figure it
we've
out.
got that.
please. I did Irish step dancing, gymnastics. My mom tried to like involve me in anything that I really like decided to stick with, I guess. So Irish step dancing and gymnastics was probably like a year or so. And then I did soccer. I remember I quit because I wasn't on the team with my best friend. I played like one game and that was it. But from then I grew up like, Sunday dinners at my grandma's house. So we always like played wiffle ball in the backyard. And one day my uncle was like, "Hey, like you should really get her into softball. Like she's kind of swinging the stick there." So, I don't know, it's all a blur, but I signed up for T Petunia League. And it really just stuck from there. I think I was 9 or 10 at the time, and I ended up playing like up a few ages. So I was in the 12U league. And I think that's where like the competitive edge kind of really started to grow there because everyone's like, she's 10, like she's not gonna play with these older girls, yada yada. And I'm like, all right, let me prove you wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So I did pretty well. I actually started at second base too, so just a whole different journey there. But throughout I stuck with softball. I think when I was 11, I started playing travel softball. So I remember writing a letter at that age and I was like, I'm gonna play professional softball. Maybe I didn't really grasp it at the time, but I knew like I wrote I was gonna play professional softball. I was gonna go to Division 1 with a scholarship, and I'm what, like 10 years old. But I had that dream in mind, and it's kind of just like something I pursued because I'm like, all right, I wrote it down, I committed to it, so I'm just gonna roll with it. Um, and then I did play some basketball in middle school and then kind of died off into high school, but I love being out and about playing sports. So now I'm an avid pickleballer and then I play slow pitch
Mhm.
as well. So I'm gonna join a women's league next year. So that'd be a little bit more competitive, but other than that, I don't know if you want me to like track back to my
That,
college
that
days.
Well, we'll get there. I want to know
Okay.
more about pickleball. I feel like I'm one of the only people on the planet that hasn't played
It's
pickleball.
so fun.
Oh, I love it. I picked it up when I was in Florida. Like it's huge down there. There's courts like everywhere in Jacksonville. So I actually learned my freshman year of college, I had to take a course that was pickleball, tennis, and badminton. So it was like a progression
Jeez.
throughout the year. Such a crazy
Racket sports.
sport.
Yeah.
But I loved it then, and then I always thought about it like since that point on. So in Jacksonville, I was like, I'm gonna get involved. So I did, and this past summer, while I'm waiting to like find a job, I'm out there like twice a day, like 7 a.m. playing against like all these like older people, like well above 60, and they're just like kicking my ass all day long. They're like so intense. It was fun. It's just like that community kind of feel, and as well competing because I always have to get my competitive edge out somehow. But I love it. Like that, I make that my whole identity. But
No.
coming to UMass, I'm like, do you guys have pickleball? And like even doing job interviews, I'm like, do you have pickleball? Because that's like the deal breaker.
Yeah, so I guess for anyone listening, before we kind of dive in with questions, do you want to just talk about like geographically, kind of where you grew up,
Yeah.
college, where you moved, where you are now? Because I feel like it's kind of unique.
Yeah.
You moved around a little bit. So just for context for all the listeners too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've hopped around a lot of places. I'll start from like the roots. I was adopted from Russia. So I came over when I was 3, grew up in Scranton, PA. That's where my whole family is. And then I went to St. Bonaventure University, which is in upstate New York. I guess you can consider upstate.
Yeah. Oh, we
Always,
won't get into that debate.
no.
Yeah.
And then I spent 5 years there. 5 years there. I did my 5th year as the COVID year, and then I went down to Jacksonville, Florida, for 2 years for my grad assistant position, and then now I'm back at Massachusetts. So I've gone. I say that I went to Florida for 2 years because I always said I wanted to play like down south during like the whole recruiting process. So I didn't get that dream, but I went for vacation for 2 years down there.
Yeah. So where are you going next year? No, I'm
Uh,
kidding.
no, I just get
Um,
it. Cut
No,
that.
so I guess diving back in your story a little bit, I know, as you probably know, my dad and I are huge advocates of kind of diving into all sorts of sports growing up because I think, to your point, it really brings out that competitive spirit in you. So I guess what was it about softball that kind of stood out to you from the beginning?
Um, I think just like it was always a constant in my life. Like I loved going there and it was like such an escape and not in a negative way, just like being out in the field, like no matter how my day was going or what you're going through in life, you're able to just get out there, hang out with your friends, have a good time, catch up. And for those like 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it was just, you felt your best and like your ability to work at, you know, I always say I chase the feeling of being like unstoppable and kind of that feeling like, you know, I lost my thought there, but
No, you're good.
no, I would say like just always trying to like improve myself and not so much at a younger age that it was like, oh, I really want to be the best. It was more, I'm just gonna be present. I'm where my feet are. I'm gonna enjoy it. So that's kind of what, brought me to constantly coming back to softball and playing it. And even going into college, it was always, that constant in my life with like schoolwork and everything else that comes with being a student athlete, just being able to step between the lines. It's a
Yeah,
different feeling.
definitely. So going off that, do you want to kind of talk about your recruiting process a little bit? Get us into that college experience.
Yeah. So, if I'm being honest, I probably didn't even want to have any part in my recruiting process. I just thought it to be a little stressful at the time. I remember, I think I recruited a little later. I think my late junior year. Well, I got recruited my late junior year, but um, I knew obviously the dream was always to play Division 1 softball. Growing up, obviously didn't have like the resources to play for the best teams. I had a lot of invites, but due to like circumstances, obviously I wasn't able to do that. But kind of just paving the way for that, through hard work and constantly chasing that dream. So I was gonna make it happen one way or another. I remember I went to camp at Bonaventure, and then I was playing upstate somewhere, and Coach House came by, and I emailed him that I was going to be there. He got back to me. Kind of happened really quick, but I remembered like just the idea that like you're going to work hard and it takes one person to believe in you. So he did. He saw it. My team, we weren't the greatest in the state, but we traveled a lot, but it takes one person to see you and one person to believe in you. So he did that. And it's kind of a done deal then. I went to campus and I told my mom, I was like, this is home. Like it just felt right. She'll say, like I said, I found my zen. Like I did. I've always chased like just the community, like atmosphere, just being part of something special. So I knew from then that that was my spot for those years.
Fantastic campus. And you said a couple great things in there also, that you got recruited a little later. I feel like everybody hits the panic button if by eighth and ninth grade people
Yeah.
aren't knocking at your door and your plan's not coming together. But there's no timeline to this stuff sometimes. I mean, I know the high school has a timeline, but you just have to keep working hard, believing in yourself and controlling what you can control. And I mean, I know so much more of your story that we haven't got into yet, but I think that's really cool that you found your Zen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even to now, I always said like it has to feel right, and I can't explain what that feeling is. I just know it is. So, like every decision I've made in life thus far has been based off like kind of that gut feeling, like it felt right, like that's where I belong. I know that like it might not be the best at the time, but that's gonna push me forward. And that experience there at Bonaventure was more than rewarding, and it's what you make it.
Yeah. So I guess what was your experience like starting out at Bonaventure? Was it what you expected? I guess take us, into that a little bit.
So I'll backtrack a little bit. The summer going into college, I quit the travel team I played for like 11 years. So that was a bit of a hard decision there, but I was playing for a more national team, so we were going to travel to California, travel to Kentucky, and I wanted to make that decision because I wanted to prepare for college, to prepare to like face kids that level. And one of the best decisions I ever made. But definitely a hard one. But going into college, I didn't have too much expectations. And I think in terms of playing, I think that's what probably helped me the most my freshman year. It was again just being where my feet were, like taking in every experience. I was new. I had no idea what college was going to prepare me for. But I met my class that year and we all clicked, and just meeting your friends and your teammates, and it's a whole different feel with your like the kids you come in your freshman year, you go through something different.
Yeah.
You go through like those like first fall game jitters, you go through all those little like ups and downs of being a freshman. Sometimes upperclassmen are yelling at you for something or asking you to do something, and you're like, "Ah," they're always fussing at us, but realizing like they're just holding you accountable, to the standards. So um, it was I would say it was probably one of my best years at St. Bonaventure, just probably because I didn't have so much expectation of myself. Um, Obviously I wanted to compete. I wanted to, push the program, push the team to wins, championships. Obviously, anyone playing the sport hopefully shares the same
Yeah.
um, kind of ideology there, but it was really just having fun soaking myself in like all those experiences. Like I would hang out with seniors, we'd go play at the rec center like weeknights, just doing like things besides just softball. And I think that's what made that experience there.
Yeah, and I think we failed to mention, and we can't go through the whole podcast without this. So Chinny actually played with my sister, Jenna, at Bonaventure her freshman year too. Jenna would be so mad if we didn't mention that somewhere in the podcast.
Like, come on, guys.
No,
Yeah.
it's funny. Sometimes it's not the quantity of time you're with somebody, it's the quality. Because we were talking pre-show that you guys still talk today, and she was only there 1 year before she transferred, and I mean that's special.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying. Like, that's a friendship I'll have for the rest of my life. We don't talk every day. We probably haven't spoken in like 3 months, or we'll shoot a text here and there. But I was able to text her while I was driving up from Jacksonville and be like, hey, can I spend the night? And she's like, absolutely. Like, nothing's changed. And, the freshman year, our class, like that group of friends I bonded with, like those are friends I'll have forever. And it's just a whole different experience, like going through that freshman year with your people, and the amount of memories and experiences and everything we built that year, that's what will carry on the most, whether
Yeah.
it was a year or two,
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I think it's so easy, like you said, in the moment to think about just the games and just softball. But when you look back, I know at least for me in college, like I remember the people I was with and the feeling I had. And don't get me wrong, there's some at bats and games I for sure remember that are forefront of my mind. But
Oh,
for the
so do
most
I.
yeah, I know. For the most part, it's those experiences. And it kind of hit the nail on the head when you said your freshman year was one of your best because I remember you going with basically no expectation and all you can do is exceed what people think you're going to do because I almost think about it like an underdog when you're a freshman. Like no one really knows what you're going to do. Everyone's just kind of looking at you. And if you do well, it's like, whoa, that's awesome. And as you get older, right, that bar keeps getting set higher and higher and higher, which can be difficult to cope with if we don't have the right mindset about it too.
Absolutely. Like I said, like I tapped into different parts of like my life as a freshman in college, and I was involving myself in FCA. So I was tapping into my spirituality. I was making friends, like having great social life with them, and I think, freshman year I started off as a catcher and I started almost every game, I believe. Our senior catcher slipped a disc or something, so I had to step up and step in. And I look back at it and I'm always like, I never for a second stood there and was like, oh my goodness, like kind of just taking the reality of what I was doing that year, realizing that I was having a good season. I was just really just enjoying the moment, like riding the wave. And then going into sophomore year, the expectations, like I just piled that on myself. I was like, that wasn't a good enough year. And reflecting now, like I definitely should have celebrated those small victories a lot more and enjoyed that a lot more and not expected so much of myself that next year.
You brought up an important point that your freshman year and most people, I mean, no matter what your expectations are, you have nothing to compare it to. And comparison can be the thief of joy. And it sounds like you got caught up in that a little, and that's human nature.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
Looking back, I mean, you've already reflected on that, know that, but boy, it's hard in the moment, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a life lesson I've been like carrying with myself every day, especially going into this job and this interview, like all these interviews and seeing on Twitter like all the announcements for positions. And I'm like, there's a part of me that it's lives like, oh, I want that, but knowing like it's when it's my time, it's my journey. And just because this person was at this university and just finished playing and gets to step in this position doesn't mean what I've been through and the steps I've taken aren't just as important. So I'm constantly carrying that with myself, and I think because I learned that a lot my sophomore year was I can't compare myself to
Yeah.
who I was. Every year I grew differently and grew not only as a player, but as a person.
Yeah. So I guess you kind of hinted at, life after college now. So do you want to take us through a little bit what you went in majoring in, how your education went, and then what you decided to do after your last game in Bonaventure?
Yeah, and don't forget, yeah, I know you had a special summer too, if I remember right, playing.
I
Oh,
did.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Can't skip
We
that.
t- yeah, don't forget any of that. Let's go.
Yeah, so I like brush over the whole playing career. Yeah, going into my fifth year, I went to play for Team Russia, so I got to spend 3 months over there. And honestly, like I tell the kids now, anyone I can talk to about it, like if you have that opportunity, take it. Just one, getting to travel to another country, and two, like just gaining different perspectives, like especially for the game of softball, like they're so passionate about it, but at the same time, it's a little bit underdeveloped. So bringing like that American influence, trying to like grow the game there, and just the experience with a different culture. I don't really speak Russian, but I didn't find that to be as limiting when I was there because they found ways to communicate. And at the end of the day, like the game is universal. So we were all on the same page, like chasing the same goal. We played in the European Cup and we played in the European Championship in Italy twice, which was
Jeez.
super cool. Yeah. Super awesome experience. Like I loved every second of it. I actually had the opportunity to stay longer in Russia so I can compete in the European Cup. And I remember we faced what is it, Kelly Barnhill from Florida. She was like the pitcher
Oh,
of
wow.
the
Okay.
and like little me inside was like freaking out a little bit because I'm like, I remember watching her on TV like when I was in high school, so there's just an incredible experience and I love to travel. Like all my friends are always joking, like I've traveled more than like most people they know. And like I
Yeah.
just love like getting out there, and just broadening my horizons, opening my mind.
That's very cool. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we almost just skipped over that. Shame on me. I totally forgot about that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what were you asking? Oh, my major. Yeah.
Circle back, circle back. Or we can just keep talking about Russia. So, because that's very cool too.
Yeah, I'd love to get back there, but right now that's not really doable, but eventually I
Yeah,
would love to get back out there.
awesome.
And then I majored in sports science, sports management, got my bachelor's of science, had a minor in communications, and like originally wanted to go to school for sport communications and then kind of just strayed away from that. But I started my master's at Bonaventure my 5th year for COVID, and then I transferred to Jacksonville and got my MBA there. And I love it. Like I knew I was gonna go to grad school. I knew I was gonna get a master's, and I just love the business side of it. I think I can relate a lot of that to the sport, I'm in my day to day, because you're always working with an organization and people.
Yeah, definitely.
You coached while you were down in Jacksonville. You were a grad assistant. I remember seeing you down there. Was that the plan originally to coach
It
while you
was.
were down?
Yeah, so coming out of Bonaventure, I knew I was gonna do my 5th year, get my master's, and then the plan was to do a GA position there. But turns out like what was offered was a directors of ops position, and I wanted more the coaching side of it. So I started like looking on the market in the summertime. It was like about a month into summer. I ended up coming across nfca.org. They have a job listings page there. So I opened that up. I started applying to a bunch of different GA spots, and I think I was just really open-minded. Like I was open to going anywhere. And I think that's like helped me a lot going through this journey, especially as a coach. But I remember I was between a couple schools, but Jacksonville texted me. They're like, "Hey, can we do an interview?" And I knew at the time I was like, yeah, I'm going to Jacksonville. Like as soon as I got the text. And I think my mindset was I'm gonna sell myself. I'm gonna be authentic. And if they don't want me, they don't want me. Like I'm not the right fit for them. But I knew I wanted to, build experience, surround myself with the right people who have had experience and successful experience in the softball world. So going down south, it's a little bit more competitive. So just
Yeah,
jumping into the fire there and being open to soaking everything in. And I speak so highly of that experience because going in with that mindset of being open, soaking it in, and taking everything I can and being grateful to being there. It's
yeah.
definitely pushed me along the way.
And now you're at UMass. When you were at Jacksonville, was the plan to continue coaching or did that change at some point?
No, I think just mindset's always been I was going to coach. And I knew that from a young age. I knew that I was always going to be a part of the game, but um I think the past couple of years, especially at Jacksonville, I started like trying to tap into what my why was, and obviously that helped lead me in the right direction and make sure that this is what I wanted to do. But at Jacksonville, like I took every opportunity to take in any resources, connect with people, get my face in front of people, and really start to try to network. I went to the NFCA convention, the coaches convention, national. I don't know if you've heard of it,
Yeah.
but um, going out there, trying to, greet people, make connections there, work camps. I knew the process of getting hired and getting a job was going to be difficult, but I knew it was in my control to try to did the most I could to get there, you know? So,
Definitely.
I started my second year at Jacksonville. We had a new assistant coach come down, so he kind of helped mentor me through the process. It was about last fall that I was like, "Hey, I know I want to coach. Like, what steps do I need to start taking now? How can I prepare for it?" So, I actually created like three handbooks, the one's offense, the one's catching, the one's defense. It just lays out my philosophies, my non-negotiables, you know, what I stand for as a coach. It just kind of shows you like the knowledge I have, but what I believe, and at the end of the day, like what I can communicate to you as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think that helped me best prepare for, you know, the job interview process as well.
Yeah.
Is you can say, hey, I have this experience, that experience, but at the end of the day, it's what you know, and that's what people ask you. So um,
Definitely.
just the resources there, the people there have definitely helped me in that process.
Yeah, so speaking of non-negotiables, that was actually my next question for you. I want to hear a little bit about like your coaching style and what's important to you because having watched you play and seeing the success you've had and knowing you for a little bit and knowing our family and things like that, I'm curious, what those non-negotiables are.
Yeah, so personally, like where I want to be, in the whole hiring process was, you know, it's the people you surround yourself with. It's people that are willing to invest in you and you're willing to invest in them. And also people that are investing in themselves. You know, I want to be surrounded with people that are, you know, trying to fill their cups up, trying to tap into different parts of their life and feel the passion for the game. And I'd say not to be complacent.
Yeah.
And I know like that's definitely a hard term to throw out there, but sometimes you can feel that.
Yeah.
Just being handcuffed with resources, things like that. But for me, it's just someone that's really passionate about the game, and you don't have to be loud and vocal about that, but I want to feel that from you. You know, how you carry yourself, this, that, and the other. But that's definitely one of mine. Communication. I stress it to our kids all the time, and you know, I stand to it as well as myself. Is always like open door communication. You know, transparency. And I think that comes along with being vulnerable as yourself and as a player. And even as a staff member, when I'm communicating with my staff, it's being open to criticism, you know, any feedback, whatever it is or just seeking, you know, an understanding to drills we're doing or, you know, why we're doing things certain way. Being willing to ask those questions and to hear the hard answers as well sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the third is to, you know, I always say I'm asking the kids to do this, to do that, carry themselves this way, have these standards. Well, I got to carry myself in that way as well. You know, so like end of the day, midday too, I'm always looking in the mirror. I'm asking like, did I communicate that the right way? Did I handle that the right way? Can I do this drill better? You know, is this helping them? Do I have a purpose? Do I have a focus in mind?
Yeah.
Um, the more I can do that as a coach, I know the kids will see that because the kids are always seeing everything you do. So making sure I'm walking the walk and talking the talk so they do the same thing.
And the thing I love about all those is those are all life things, right?
Mhm.
Like passion, communication, self-awareness. Like those things are going to carry you super far in life. And that's kind of what I heard as you were talking about them too. Like obviously I'm post college career now and I'm thinking about all the times I've had to exercise those traits in my life. So I think that's really valuable too of, in college, you don't just want to become a better softball player, you want to become a better person too.
Absolutely. And that's my mission. And I wrote out a mission statement coming into
I love
everything.
that.
Just like trying to find out my why too, but it's to empower young women, you know, to be resilient, to have self-belief, to push for any dream or goal they want. And that's not just softball. Like through softball, you're going to do that, and that's going to carry into life. And just trying to help them see that bigger picture, like understanding themselves as athletes, as people, and willing to like fight for what they want, willing to communicate when the conversations might be a little difficult, asking the coach, you know, the hard questions, but at the end of the day, like that's just gonna make you a better human.
Yeah.
And what I like about all these is the game's bigger than you. And these non-negotiables, these beliefs of yours, the sooner you buy into something like this, the more successful you're going to be. junior high, high school, college, work life, parenthood someday. And I feel like people sometimes, the more expectation they have for the game, I feel like the more they start thinking about just themselves instead of staying true to their beliefs. And we've all run across people like that. As a coach, is there a way to get through to them? Like if say I'm a high school coach and I know somebody's good enough to play where you're coaching. Is there a way I could get through to them, or is that something you just like you said, you set the example and hope they catch on?
Yeah, I think like that taps it a little bit into recruiting. Being able to like have those interactions with the kids. When we go out recruiting, it's not so much watching their results, watching their games, it's watching how they carry themselves. And I want to get to know the person just as much, close as possible, as much as I can, with the rules in place. But being able, like, I want people that are authentic and, you know, they are true to themselves. Obviously, kids that come into the program young, it's a little difficult. You're gonna start finding yourself, this, that, and the other, but you know, kids with an open mind that are willing to challenge themselves, willing to be uncomfortable. I can definitely stress those to them, but at the end of the day, like you are who you are. I can help influence you that, but it's also for me to understand the person you are and how you take that kind of information. I can say, hey, you have to be accountable, but that also comes along with investing in the relationship with the kid, understanding how they take that feedback, how they translate it, how they feel about it, and then we can go from there. I might talk to you a little bit different, Paul, than I would to Allie
Yeah.
about certain things, but that's just because the relationships we develop.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you were talking about when you go recruiting because I was at a showcase with the travel team I helped coach, I think 2 weekends ago, and they were a little nervous. And I was like, guys, remember, if a college coach is coming to watch you, they already know you're talented, right? That's pretty much always a given. So if you strike out, they're gonna pay attention to how you react. I told them, I'm like, if I'm a coach, I kind of want to see you strike out, right? Not in a bad way, but that's something I can't tell from the video you send me where obviously you're gonna look really good. And like I want to see something I can't get from an email. And I think that's just awesome coming from you too, who is a Division 1 coach now, too. So I guess, any thoughts on that too?
Yeah, I think it's just so important. It's always like, oh, what are you looking for, coach? Like, I've been to a bunch of camps, parents asking, like, how do I get my kids seen? At the end of the day, like, I want to find the kids that are having a good time playing the game at 8 a.m. Like, nobody wants to be there at 8 a.m. But you find it in you to, give your best, to have fun doing it, knowing like you have this opportunity to get out here and play today. Your parents have traveled how far for you to play, to be here, to showcase in front of college coaches, to chase your dream. Kids that buy into that, I think that's what I look for. And you can see that just the way they carry themselves. You strike out, but you're running out in the field and you're still talking to your teammates. You might be smiling. Like nobody wants to strike out, but at the end of the day, it's the game. You fail more than you succeed. And just being able not to carry that on to everything you do. Um, that's that's always my spiel to the kids and just being like true to who they are. Like I don't want 10 Allie Richmonds,
Yeah, you
like
shouldn't.
kids
Yeah.
yeah,
Nobody does. No.
No, you're so right. Yeah.
yeah. But I want like every kid's different, you are who you are. And it's always, well, how do I get my kids seen? Do I need to sign up for this? Do I need to play for this travel team? Like what's meant for you will find you.
Yeah.
And you know at the end of the day it's the kid understanding like what do I truly want. Am I emailing UMass and they don't even have an educational program that I want to pursue. So making sure they're understanding a little bit more of what they're looking for, and then the same thing in the same breath, it's a little bit tailed away, like as much as we look into the kid and who they are, they need to look into us as well. So I'm very open on my social media. I want them to understand like the type of person I am. Am I the good fit for them? Am I the right fit? Do I line up with what they're looking for? Do I look like a kind of coach that can help them, reach their goals?
Yeah, definitely. And I want to stick on the topic of recruiting for a minute because I think there's a stigma out there that, kids go to showcases and college coaches just show up and are like, all right, who looks athletic here? Like,
Mhm.
that's not how it works. And I try to explain that, like, okay, if you go to a tournament, you're like, I'm watching this kid at 8, I'm watching this kid at 9:30, based on who's emailed you, who's come to camps. That's my understanding of it. So I'm curious, your thoughts on that, because I know some girls might email one coach and say, oh, I hope they come. And it's just, it takes a lot more than that. I always try to tell my girls, if you don't feel annoying, you're probably not doing enough,
Right.
because they need to keep seeing your name and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. My biggest thing I always say, like, if you're really adamant about a coach coming to watch you, try to email them as close as possible to like that weekend game, whatever it is. If it's an 8 a.m. game on Saturday, for me personally, like, you shoot me that email while I'm traveling, I'll probably see it. But I look for more personalized emails. A lot of kids, I get a lot of emails from kids like, hey, I'm playing this weekend. I'll post it on Twitter. Hey, Coach Key, come watch me play. But there's no kind of personalization to it. No research gone into like, hey, like, this is why I like UMass, or this is why I like this and that school. This
Or
is
like you had a great fall season or things like that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Just simple things. It doesn't have to be long, but it makes me a little bit more willing to go out and watch those games when I have the free time. Because going into a weekend, there are kids that I'm like this fall, I was going to check up on some kids that were looking to get committed, kids that are coming in next year. But I also had some free time, and I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm looking for that kid. So I'm willing to watch a bunch of games. And you know what? I might be out there watching you play, going to watch you with play, Allie, but
Yeah.
you're playing against a different team. You're playing against how many other girls, and I can potentially see you there too. So I keep an open mind to that. I love watching softball, so I'll try to walk around the whole complex and get my steps in. But at the end of the day, like we always say, like really just personalizing the emails. It doesn't have to be a novel either, but just something that stands out. My favorite tagline was "Everybody needs a redhead," and one of the girls sent me. And I'm like, you know what? That's
That's
perfect.
that's brilliant.
But like, talk about standing out too. Like, you're a person too, right? Like,
Right.
you got to add your own little spice to
Yeah,
That's,
it.
absolutely. Yeah.
that's
And like it's you're probably sending it to like all the coaches that are attending, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like don't get upset if the coach that you sent it to didn't come, but you didn't personalize it, or you didn't like really show that your interest in the school.
Yeah.
there's this is all great stuff because I don't think we realize in our little bubbles sometimes there's so many people that play softball. Like I don't even know how you can keep up, and some are going to get through the cracks. It's just the volume, right? Especially if you're just emailing once.
Yes.
If you're emailing every day and you have a tagline like you said. I want to ask you another question about recruiting. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it. What do you think? I coach high school, so I have a lot of connections on Twitter with players and this and that. The ones that just tag several 8 schools at a time with their highlights. Do people look at those? Do, some don't? Do you have any thoughts at all? I just thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I have really tapped into Twitter probably the past 2 or 3 years. I love just being able to pull up a kid's like profile while I'm at like the tournament or something like that. But I'm not too big of a fan of that specifically, like tagging a bunch of schools. I don't, in the kindest way, I don't think it's like proving anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
It's not personal.
I do like it sometimes because it'll tag like maybe am interested in the kid, but it'll tag like all these other schools so I know who they're like talking to, they're showing interest to. And then at the same time, it's like you have this whole list of people. Well, are you really narrowing it down? Are you taking the time to consider what you're really looking for, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost like a shotgun approach and hoping one of you happens to look at the tag. But I guess it probably just depends how you choose to use that resource, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's so hard because when I'm at camps, parents are like, should we do this? Should we do that? And I'm never gonna be like, yes, you should do this. Yes, no, you shouldn't do that. Everyone's journey is different, and I think that's where we get caught up in trying to, create a playbook on how to get recruited. Like you need to play for this team, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you're for sure gonna get recruited, but that's not the case whatsoever. And that's why I always stress like the whole be authentic, make it you. Like don't let comparison be the thief of joy, right? Like you're so caught up in trying to live out this playbook that you miss the joy of playing the game, and having fun. And when you're playing your best, you're doing just that. You're having fun. You're enjoying
And
yourself.
I think that's why it's hard too, because if you ask almost any, retired college softball player to tell you the recruiting story, they're all going to be different. And that's probably frustrating as it is beautiful. But if I'm trying to get recruited, I can't tell you, oh, what I did works for everybody because it doesn't. So, when kids ask me, oh, should I include this video at the bottom? Like, will they like this? I always tell them, I'm like, you know what, include what you want that's going to make you stand out. And I try to help, but it's sometimes there's no black and white script of, hey, if you emailed this way, they're gonna come to your game.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the same like you guys asking me the conversations like this is from my experience, but I try to be as transparent with whoever asks me, whether it's you guys or parents or players too. It's just make it your journey, it's gonna be your story, write your own story.
And I do need you to confirm a very hot topic for me.
Oh,
So, game changer.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, I want to hear this too.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people in my ear saying college coaches 100% look at the high school game changer and the travel ball game changer, and that's a really big deal. So can
Um,
you talk about that?
Speaking from my experience, my opinions, it's so funny because I was looking on Twitter today and I saw something that I personally don't care for it. I don't like it. I think it's so hard to like base the kid's hit off of it. It's going to left center. I'm like, I can barely see it. If you're playing center, I can barely see you.
Yeah.
I prefer like we always say, like show us raw data, like raw film, when you're training at practice if you come to a camp and we're like, hey, like, coach, what can I do better? Hey, work on this, this, and that. Then send us an email and be like, hey, here's a hitting session. I've been working on this and that. I rather see that. I'd rather see it like a catching training session than game changer. It's just so difficult to watch,
Yeah, well, and even the stat part too, I laugh because people are like, that was not an error, that was a hit. I'm like, they are not looking at the 8 a.m. game that you're playing in New Jersey right now that Joe Schmo's dad is putting in the game.
No.
I
Absolutely not.
yeah.
And I
So,
think maybe it's just like my trust issues with the people putting it in, because I've
right.
I've lived through it,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
coaches doing books and I'm like, I don't know. So they get caught like parents get caught up in that and it's great. Like you can make a highlight reel for your kid, like send it over, but
Yeah.
it's difficult to watch. And I know like speaking to coaches and coaches who have spoken on it, that's just not a fan of it.
Yeah.
I think there's too much hype around it, it's just taken away from a lot of the game.
Yeah, and it can work for some people. I just wanted to bring it up because I've heard a lot of noise around it and I wanted to make sure I was understanding it correctly too.
Oh, I love it. Like I'll show up, there's a million cameras on the fence, and then they have umbrellas for it and everything.
And I think it can be good depending on like certain things. I just think more from the stats perspective, it doesn't necessarily.
Absolutely. I actually like I haven't ever looked at the stats. I've just looked at like the
Right.
clips of it, but it
Yeah.
can for sure. Like
Okay.
in like high school, I know kids will send over like the high school stats or whatever it might be. Like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Thanks.
hard. It's hard to compare. It's hard to even know what to compare it with, really.
Hmm.
And I want to ask the question. I feel like everybody, I'm going to exaggerate a little, but I think it's a high number. Set 3/4 plus of every college recruit, I really think, no matter what they're told, goes into college thinking they're going to play and make an impact right away. Do you think it's that high? Like, oh, the shortstop's a senior, so when I get there, I'm just gonna jump right in.
No way,
Nothing.
there's three backup shortstops that are already on the team. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Oh, sorry, go
okay,
ahead.
no. So what I was gonna ask, like, is there a way to try to help people? Like, is there a process to just? Think you touched base on it earlier. You just go in and work hard every day. You can expect to start, but how do you deal with the player that all of a sudden is like, what do you mean? You recruited me. I should be starting.
I think yeah, like going in, I wouldn't say least amount expectations because I don't want you to like belittle yourself, lower that bar. But at the same time, I think you go in understanding like trying to buy into what we're doing there at the program and um I lost my train of thought, so sorry. Buy in, but oh my goodness, it literally was right there.
You're good. We've been talking for a
Oh,
while.
understanding the role you play. Like you might be, say, you're a freshman coming in, you're a catcher. Um, you got three catchers in front of you. You can bust your butt, you can work really hard, and honestly, the quicker you can buy into what we're doing at practices, like the purpose we have behind everything, the reason, that might line you up for success a little quicker because your progress is gonna go on a more of an incline, right? Like you might progress a little bit better, quicker there. But understanding the role you play, like if you're catcher or whoever it may be, like I'm saying specifically catchers because I work with catchers.
Right, right.
um, sometimes your role might be catching some bullpens, most of the season during the season there. And instead of throwing like a big deal about it and being mad about it, like just looking for reasons to get better, asking the coaches, how can I get better? What can I do better? But really embracing the role you're in. Everyone's been through it. Most people have to do it, like it's just kind of the written way, But you can for sure earn your spot, starting in the spring as a freshman. I would never tell anyone they can't because I did when I was a freshman.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's what helped me be successful and get that spot was just, you know, really embracing everything we were doing and wanting to get better. Everyone's coming from, I know you mentioned in a podcast before, everyone's coming from, being the best in their area, being the best here and there, and like you're all on an even platform now. How are you going to stand out? How are you going to carry yourself? Are you going to pay attention to the small details? That's what's going to lift you. That's what's going to put you a little bit on that platform rather than expecting that spot. You got to earn it.
Yeah.
So important. I mean, it's not your timeline at that point, it's the program's timeline. Now, you can probably accelerate it a little if you're the hardest worker, but I think you really have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, like you were talking about early, is there stuff I can do better?
Mhm.
There probably is, right? If you're not getting your way.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, like I think it's just seeking growth, like going to college and playing softball, like you're learning, I wouldn't say a whole new ballpark of softball, but you're working in a different way, like you're working with new people. Nowadays with softball and travel, you're probably not on the same team for more than a year or two, so learning culture and dynamics and everything like that. um, just seeking like not giving yourself a time slot like, oh, in a year I want to be out on the field or anything like that kind of expectation, but saying, hey, like it's okay, this year's a year for growth. And I kind of hate when coaches are like, well, you're a freshman, like freshmen don't normally start, and like it could be the truth here and there, but that's just a fuel for my fire,
Yeah.
like I'm like, I could say that to one of our freshmen now, but I want them to be like, no, coach, like I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like I want to be out there and I'm gonna show you why I want to be out there and why I deserve to be out there, earning that spot.
Yeah. I guess one more question I have for you before we wrap up. I think it's becoming more of a conversation, at least I've heard for girls, of I don't really want to play for my high school team, right? I just want to focus on travel and whatnot. So I'm curious your just personal perspective, but then as a college coach too, right? Say you're recruiting a really good kid and they say, nah, I don't want to play for my high school team. Is that necessarily maybe a red flag for you? Like what's going on over there? Or I'm just curious how you think about that.
Yeah, definitely a topic that's come up often nowadays, but I would say I definitely want the kid playing in high school. I think there's just like some years of development there, learning to work on a team dynamic, because you go from that to maybe travel ball. And like I said, nowadays with travel ball, you're not really on the same team for more than a year or two. If you are, very fortunate.
Yeah.
But high school is just different. Like you're kind of it's a tough time in life. You're trying to discover yourself, understand yourself, and the sport's just gonna bring the best out of you, and that's where you can maybe start honing in on like what you love about the sport and whether you want to really continue that on, because you get a lot of kids now that come to college and softball is just not what they want to do anymore. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important just for development years. We still like I'll still look at some high school kids, just like to see like if they're playing during the spring, like how they're doing. Like they'll send over their stats and stuff, but you take it with a grain of salt. But just like if they're committed to you too, it's just like reaching out to them, being like, "Hey, congrats, like great season, yada yada," just trying to invest in that relationship a little bit earlier. But
Yeah.
overall, like I wouldn't ever encourage anyone not to play high school. I think that was a huge part of my growth as a softball player. It was an immense part of my growth as a softball player,
Yeah.
but um yeah.
I
You know,
think,
I've got to put my 2 cents in quick.
I
I
was
mean,
just gonna say we talk
you know,
about that all the time.
all the things that we talk about to be a good college player, buying in, process, culture, heck, even playing 7 full innings, which you don't always do in travel. I mean, that's high school mirrors college a lot more than people think. Maybe not across the board talent like a travel team does, maybe not exposure, but I think all those intangibles that make you better in college
Mhm.
may come from high school over travel. I mean, everybody's situation is different. But I'm going to be a little biased towards the high school part.
No, absolutely. And I mean, from my high school experience, like my high school coach, he unfortunately he passed away going into my junior year, but firmly say like all the time, like he is the reason I am the person I am today. And like I think sometimes you miss out on that. Obviously, you're not always gonna have like, the best apples in the bunch, but I think high school coaches and just that environment have a huge influence on the kids at that time. And I know you do a great job inspiring those kids, Paul, but um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I gotta finish with one question. Uh, Give us a moment you'll never forget playing softball, or just something you miss about it. I'll leave it a little open ended. I mean, it's hard. You work your whole life and then you don't play. Now you're going to play in a women's league. It's got to be a little
Heck
different.
yeah.
I do have to backtrack a little bit. I had an invite tryout for the WPF this past summer in August. So that was a super cool experience. Yeah, let me just
Oh,
wrap it up with that.
oh
Um,
my God.
Yes, so I
By
went
the
to
way,
that was in Vero Beach, Florida, and honestly, that's probably one of the top up there moments of just going. There's 16 of us that were there. I think 4 teams in attendance from the WPF, and it was just super cool. It's like 3 days. It was just us there at the Jackie Robinson complex. And oh my goodness, like I became friends with those people instantly. It was just like grinding it out. And after not playing for so long, going out there and I didn't have any expectations for myself. It was kind of just like go out and play the game like I know it is, like how I know I am, and just enjoy it. And I did that. And like, I cried afterwards because it was just I was able to just play the most free I ever played in my entire life. And do a good job doing it too. I did pretty well, but to each their own. But I'd say um my favorite moment, I think softball wise, was we were playing Dayton probably my junior year. I mean, no, my senior year. And I think we were Probably like 0-15 on the season, but um, going through that program, I always tell my teammates now, like we made the most of it and our experiences there, and I wouldn't take it for anything else in the world. But I know we were playing Dayton that weekend and we were looking for our first win of the season, and I ended up hitting a home run to walk it off. And it
Yes.
was such an intense game, and it wasn't even the result of it, but I remember getting to home plate and we're all crying, and I'm crying too, and I don't normally cry, but it was just like such weight off your shoulders. Like you could have sworn we won the A10 championship. But it was just like, collectively working as something as a whole and always just coming up short. And finally, like we got that breath, we got to take that breath. That was just super cool. I'll replay that video for the rest of my life. But
That's
um
that's
I think
awesome.
that's what I miss about it the most too is just being a part of something like a team. Coming into my job here, I said I want to be part of something special, and that's what I loved about softball is all these different stories, all these different moving pieces working towards one goal, one mission. So I get that still now, but I miss it on the softball side, just being able to like bust my butt, get to 7 a.m. lift. I get to watch them now, but I'm not doing the same thing anymore.
You could
So.
join in, I'm sure, if you want.
Yeah, I could. Grinding it out, going through all those ups and downs, like all those experiences have just made me who I am.
Yeah.
All right, well, I do have to ask one more. Have you checked the schedule? Or does Bonnie's come to you, or do you go to Bonnie's next spring, or
Uh,
don't you
Bonnie's comes to us. Yes,
know?
so yeah. So it's actually like our farewell tour in the A10 because we're going to the MAC next year.
Oh, that's right.
So it's like one last time. And I'm like, we're going out with a bang.
That'll be cool.
I'm sure you wouldn't have been mad about going to Bonnie's, actually.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, oh, thank God we don't have to go to Bonnie's anymore. But now we have to go to Buffalo.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
It'll
But
probably be snowing when you go there anyway. So
yeah, I know I would have loved to go because I haven't been back since I left, and I've been meaning to go. It's just like quite far from Florida.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm a little, I would, yeah, a little closer.
This was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
As always, we just love having these conversations, and Allie and I talk about it a lot. The same themes just keep coming up. So if people are listening, well, I mean, I not if people that are listening,
Yeah.
it's these are important lessons. And at the end of the day, you can use softball as a platform to help and serve others. You can use it as a platform to for your career. You can use it as a platform to grow, and that's why we're a little biased. It's probably the greatest game out there, right?
Yes. Yes.
Buddy, I'm biased. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks,
I've
Grace.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Good luck. I'll keep in touch.
Yep, stay on, stay on.